gets in, lads? Welcome back to the Game Football Podcast. My name is Elijah, and per usual, after the international window, I'm here to give you guys my report on Jamaica's two games. That was against Nicaragua and Honduras. No losses, a win and a draw, which means they will advance into the Nations League quarterfinals to face the USA in November. A little bit of a rematch from last year. I'm very excited for that. If you guys want us to live stream that game for you guys, or at least our reaction to it, make sure to leave a like down below. And then, of course, leave a comment down below as to your thoughts about how those two games went in October for the Reggae Boyz. So per usual, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on both of those games, and we're going to start with the Nicaragua game. A 2-0 win, like I had said, a pretty decent performance away from home, which is normal. Jamaica tends to have a pretty good away record in the Nations League, at least, and they did pretty good. They got those 2 goals. Some things to note for sure that are not necessarily positive, but overall, a positive performance nonetheless. Now, number one, without Andre Blake, of course, Jamaica did not win that game. Andre Blake was electric that entire game and was, in my opinion, the man of the match. Tyreek McGee has definitely a shout as to being one of the man of the matches, but Andre Blake was the saving grace for the Reggae Boyz the whole game. And without him, I don't know if Jamaica advanced at top of the group. He looked really, really good. Without a doubt, the number 1 or 2 goalkeeper in CONCACAF, in my humble opinion. If you guys have a different opinion, let me know down below. But without a doubt, one of the best goalkeepers in North America, and he showed it in the game against Nicaragua. But as a result, because of his good performance and the reason why they got so many shots off on him is interesting. That was one of the negative points I wanted to make, is that Nicaragua got 17 shots on Jamaica, and that's from Nicaragua. That's a big deal. Andre Blake, again, like I said, had a really, really good game. But when a goalkeeper has a really good game with a lot of saves, it begs a lot of questions as to why there's a lot of shots on him. We saw that with Tim Howard, I believe it was Tim Howard, against Belgium with his 16 saves, which is a World Cup record. Why was there 16 shots on target on him for him to make? I think it was 16, 12 or 16, something like that. Andre Blake, 17 shots he had to face, not on target, but 17 shots in total. That is a really, really big deal for Jamaica, and something that they need to look at moving forward as they play more competitive games, especially against the USA. You cannot be giving up 17 shots to Nicaragua, let alone the likes of Canada, USA, Mexico, Panama even, Costa Rica, all these teams, and we'll talk about more with Honduras one too. All these teams, you cannot be giving up that many shots. So that is one negative I have for that game. Thankfully, no goals were scored because of Andre Blake's heroics, but that is definitely one negative. Some positives though. It was a really, really good game for some players who don't typically get a lot of game time. In particular, Karoy Anderson had a very, very good game in the midfield, which is a big sign because I have been saying, of course, you guys know the deal by now. Midfield, worst part of the team. It's about time somebody stood up. Next up, Tavon Gray at right back. I love Tavon Gray. I think he's a really, really good MLS player, and he deserves a lot more opportunities here. He had a very, very solid game as well. And a lot of these players have really made the claim for, a future stint with the team, at least in a starting role, which is really, really good. And I know Steve McLaren really wants to see. And then, of course, above all, Tyreek McGee from Colorado Springs. He had a very, very, very good game. He was involved in one of the goals. And I mentioned him in the preview I did with the team when the team was announced. I mentioned him. He was going to be a key part. I didn't know if he was going to solve the midfield troubles, but that game he did. Really, really, really good chemistry with Bobby Reed. And it's something that I think Stephen McLaren has to pounce upon in the future. And I do think Tyreek McGee 100% has earned himself a call-up for the games against the USA. So I do hope he's there. I don't know if he starts those games, but I do hope he does. Also, kind of depends on if Mason Greenwood is in by then or not. But I do see him starting for now because he had a really, really, really good game there. He fully deserves to be in the news and headlines and whatnot because he had a really, really good game. And if Andre Blake didn't have as good of a game, I think Tyreek McGee would have been my man of the match. So overall, some negatives, but primarily 3 points, which is all that matters and led them to go into the quarterfinals. Let's talk about the Honduras game next because that was also a very, very interesting game. And number one, why can't the Reggae Boyz perform at home? I'm sure some of you guys watching this video have gone to the games or were even at that game. I'm sure it's frustrating. Whenever I go to any sort of sports game, let's say the Dodgers, LAFC or the Lakers, anything local to me, and I pay good money, and my team doesn't perform at home in front of their home support, it's very frustrating. So I'm sure you guys are frustrated on that front, and I can't apologize for the team, but I'm very, very sorry. But overall, regardless, the home support has been really, really good. So if you guys are part of that, make sure to continue it because I'm sure that is exactly what the Reggae Boyz need and want to see that moving forward up until the 2026 World Cup and beyond. So keep going. Otherwise, it was an interesting game against Honduras, who I've long said is their biggest competition in that group. Luckily, they were able to get first place over them because of the game's last time in September, when they did get that fairly lucky win against Honduras. They were able to get those 3 points. A draw here was good enough for them. But again, kind of the same problems as the game against Nicaragua, where they conceded a lot of shots, not goals, a lot of shots. Just to provide you guys with some stats here, there was 13 shots they gave up, with 4 of those on target, and Jamaica only had 4 shots for themselves with 0 of those on target. So not a good attacking performance at all. Some of the defenders were pretty solid. Ethan Pinnock, I think, is a player that has also been very consistent over the course of the most recent international games for Jamaica. Mason Holgate did make his debut, or his a full debut. He did come on in the game against Nicaragua, but it was his first full start for Jamaica, and I think he looked pretty decent. I mean, I really enjoy that combination of him and Ethan Pinnock. I'm really interested to see that when Deshaun Bernard comes back, whether or not Holgate starts or not. Personally, I give it to Deshaun Bernard for now, because I really like Deshaun Bernard, and he has high potential to be a really good Concacaf center back in comparison to Mason Holgate. I mean, I'm not saying Mason Holgate is bad by any means. He's a class addition to this team. I just think Deshaun Bernard knows the system a little bit more, or at least knows how to play with these players in comparison to Mason Holgate. Obviously, it still is a new system under Steve McLaren. Still a lot of kinks to work out with a bunch of different players. But if I were to pick, it would still be Deshaun Bernard if he's healthy against the USA. It's 2 legs, though, so you could play either and see what happens. But personally, I still give it to Deshaun Bernard. Overall, though, I think they had like 60 or 61% possession, so that is a good sign. It's very clear, though, that Steve McLaren's system is, finally digging its roots into the team, which is good, because I think under Jaime recently, or before Steve came in, there was a system, but it wasn't one that like brought a lot of hope. It was definitely just like a sit back and hope we don't concede kind of thing. The Steve McLaren system is not a whole lot different per se, but I think offers a lot more on the buildup, which is really good. And you can tell that is definitely taking place with this team, which is really good. Something that this team needs before they go into big competitions like the Nations League or the Gold Cup or whatnot. Definitely something to take note of and see how that improves over time. It's definitely good to see that it's being improved in general, because if I think by this point, if we hadn't seen it improve, a lot of questions would be asked as to what Steve has been doing with that team. But because we've seen it recently, it's a good sign for the future, and I really hope it maintains its foothold with this team. And I think they're going to look good in at least one of those games against the USA. Last time they played the USA, they had a really poor team, Jamaica. Nowhere near the best team. A lot of players out on injury and suspension, I believe. And this time is really the chance to prove that they belong in this realm of teams in CONCACAF. With a good system, with a good manager, I think they can do it. So it's a good sign. Keep taking note of things like that in these games and see whether or not Steve McLaren is really setting the team up for success. Not saying Heimer wasn't, but no, I'm going to say Heimer wasn't. I don't think Heimer was setting the team up for success in that way. I just think he was trying to save his ass and not concede a lot of goals, which is not how you win, especially with Jamaica, where I do think they're on the cusp of beginning to contend for tournaments and trophies in CONCACAF. So I do think that it's a good thing that Steve McLaren is setting the tactics up the way they are, getting these players in all under the same page, and especially bringing dual Nats in who kind of know the English style of play over there and getting it started for Jamaica and the Reggae Boyz. Another thing to note about that Honduras game too is that Bobby Reid did not play, I believe, or he didn't start. That is important. Really important. It really shows how important Bobby Reid is to this team, because you could tell without him, there was a lot of things missing in general. A lot of things missing in the build-up and the attack. So him being there is really important, especially for the games against the USA. Now, I know we talked about the midfield a lot and how Bobby Reid isn't the answer to the midfield problems. That's okay. He could be the answer to the attacking part of the midfield and that link between the midfield and the attack, which he is. So very key. Take note of it when he is not there and when he is there, because it is really important that when he is there, you notice Jamaica get a lot more opportunities, a lot more buildup, which is something that the team needs instead of just moving the ball forward and hoping that Michael Antonio gets to it, it's a decent system against certain teams. But honestly, I'm pretty tired of seeing it, because it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out. It's the old school style of play, whereas nowadays you're seeing a lot of passing, a lot of link up, a lot of build up, a lot of runs. You got to keep doing that, and you got to, get that going with the Reggae Boyz. It happens, it works sometimes, but we saw that in the Copa America against CONMEBOL opponents. It didn't work almost at all. Really didn't. Against Mexico, it almost worked, but you don't get the best opportunities from it in comparison to when you could build up, could take your time, and then you might get a good opportunity on the end of it. I just don't like seeing it as much unless when it's necessary. When it's your go-to style of attack, in my opinion, does not work. Other than that, though, guys, I don't have a whole lot of comments to make. I mean, again, they do have those games in November against the USA, which we are going to have a lot of content for. I'm going to do previews and, lineups and players that got called up. Maybe we'll do a live stream. If you guys want, like I said, leave a like if you guys want a live stream for those games. So we have about a month until those games, and I'm not too doubtful about this team. I think Jamaica has what it takes to beat the USA. USA, for those who don't know, they just lost to Mexico. They beat Panama, but over the past few months have not been the USA of the past few years. So if there's a time to beat the USA, it is now. And honestly, that all started with Jamaica beating them, or almost beating them, last year in the semifinals. Almost. I do hope that the Reggae Boyz go into this game with a bit of a vengeful spirit, and they want to take something from this game and get a good result, which I'm sure they do. I really, really hope that that game is a good one for Jamaica, and I think they will. I think there's a lot of motivation there to get a result and to really stun not only the USA, but the rest of the region with their performance. It is over 2 legs. There are 2 different games, 2 opportunities to show that they mean something. But that first game is going to be hugely important. I think it's on the 15th, 14th of November, 15th. One of those. Don't quote me on that. But around then, you guys will know because we're going to do a lot of content. So make sure to leave your guys' opinions in the comments down below about these 2 games, those 2 games, the team, the manager, anything. Let me know in the comments down below because I read every single one of the ones you guys post. Leave a like on the video if you guys want more Jamaican content. Make sure to subscribe for more Jamaican content and CONCACAF content. And hopefully we'll see you guys in future videos coming up. And take care, guys.